Good morning, Courage to Change with Karen. How are you all? Welcome back to episode number 34. We are going to read from Karen Casey's book, Let Go Now, about detachment. I'm just really enjoying this. So I hope you are too. Let me know. Give me some comments. Let me know what you think. Okay. So today we're reading page 22. Detachment means freedom from obsession. I, for one, am all too familiar with how obsessing over the actions of others can lead my emotions to spin out of control. Left unchecked, I can find myself in a downward spiral that feels overwhelming and can lead to the awful feeling of hopelessness that used to be my constant companion. Obsession with others on our path can creep up on us when we least expect it. But I have come to understand, with the help of those wiser than myself on this journey, that when I'm not staying close enough to my higher power, I am very vulnerable to the old habit of watching others and letting how they behave determine how I feel. I have been on this spiritual journey for many decades, actually, for my whole life, when I acknowledged that God has always been present, even when I was unable to acknowledge it. And yet, I can slip away from the very habits that keep me serene, sane, and living in the joy that is my birthright. I'm quite certain the same is true for many of you. We can learn how to detach. We can think about God rather than about what someone else is doing or not doing. Moving our thoughts from one to the other is the key to happiness. It's guaranteed. Ooh, I like this reading because I'm an obsessor. This part right here actually made me a little anxious. It says, I, for one, am all too familiar with how obsessing over the actions of others can cause my emotions to spin out of control. This is where it starts getting shaky for me. Left unchecked, I can find myself in a downward spiral that feels overwhelming and can lead to the awful feeling of hopelessness that used to be my constant companion. Ugh. The word spiral, overwhelming, hopelessness hits me in the gut. Obsessions with others on our path can creep up on us when we least expect it. But I've come to understand that with the help of those wiser than myself on this journey, that I'm not staying close enough to my higher power. I am very vulnerable to the habits of watching others and letting how they behave determine how I feel. So it's suggesting to stay out of this is that you've got to depend on a power greater than yourself. And I believe that. I just think that I don't want to get off on a rabbit hole here, but I really think having some kind of power greater than yourself is so important. Now, later in the reading, it gets a little religious for me. It says, we can learn how to detach. We can think about God rather than about what someone else is doing or not doing. That gets a little, and it gets too limiting for me. I don't believe everyone on the planet believes in God. Um, I know that. I'm not naive to that thought. And some people believe in something greater than themselves, but calling it God turns a lot of people off. And so even higher power can turn people off because people immediately think of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? They think of drug addicts and alcoholics. And I think you've got to figure out what you're going to call it. I think you got to you don't have to, but it's so helpful when these readings come up because your mind will just revert to what you think, whether it's source energy, the universe, nature, excuse me, um, whether it's Al Anon, the whole group of Al Anon as a whole. I would never make one particular group. If you have a home group you love, you can love that home group, but groups change. So you don't want to put all your dependence on that group because if something happens to that group, you're kind of, you're kind of screwed. So you want to make it something that is constant, something that is greater than yourself. When I think about the universe, I personally believe in God because I was raised that way. It's just embedded in me, but I'm not a religious person. I believe God is universal. I believe it's interchangeable. I believe that the principles that my God want me to live by are the same as other religions. The principles are primarily the same. I think the main thing about this concept is that it's a smashing of the ego to say I don't know everything. I'm going to depend on this higher force. I'm going to depend on everything working out because it's already, it's just the natural thing, the natural progression of things. I liken it to a tree growing. You don't go out there and tell the seed what to do, right? You're not out there screaming at the little bud popping up through the dirt. You're not going, grow, grow, grow. No, it's got its own natural process, and it is being orchestrated by some energy, some intelligence. I'm not talking about aliens, I'm talking about the intelligence of nature and the universe, the same intelligence that makes the tides come in and out, that makes the moon full and then half and then quarter. You know what I mean? These things are happening without us. Gravity happens. Things are happening by universal law. They're just going to happen. And I have had a lot of things in my life that have happened. One popped into my head this morning, and I thought, God, that could not have been orchestrated. That directly led to the person I am today, and yet it was totally out of my control. And I think that happened a lot more when I was younger. I was very carefree, very like, oh, let's see what's next. Let's go with the flow. Let's just see where, this leads us. And as I got older, I got more controlling. And especially after having a child, I got very controlling. And then responsibility sets in, and then fear and pressure. And all of a sudden, I'm doing everything on my own. There's no going with the flow anymore. I got to make it happen. It's either going to be right or wrong. It's usually always wrong when I do it. That kind of setup. I can't do anything right, but I'm the one that's got to do it. And then I feel put out because no one else is doing their part. So it's an interesting thing. So when I ask you, or we talk about this higher power, when the author here is saying that these things happen, this obsession really happens when they're not leaning on their higher power. You need to replace that with whatever you believe. I think all the things I just mentioned about the tree growing and the waves and the moon and the everything, I think that's God. That is God. My God is like multifaceted. It's a whole it depends on what situation, and I never really try to define it because it's so elusive. But I do believe that I don't know everything. I do know that if I just be quiet and watch the show, things usually turn out better than I could have imagined. And that's what it's trying to say here. This other part when it says we can learn how to detach, we can think about God rather than what someone else is doing or not doing. In that aspect, I think God is an action word. I don't think it's a noun, I think it's a verb. And I think a lot like faith and God to me are action. Like I am only demonstrating faith when I am doing something that's usually contrary to what I think I should be doing or you should be doing or that needs to be done. I'm doing the next indicated thing. But the same with this obsession. I have found when I ask God, what she say? Oh, you could think about God. I don't know about you. But when you're obsessing about someone, the last thing you're thinking about, you can't even get to that. spot where you say, oh, I should be thinking about something else. No, it's like a freight train. It's on, it's going. It's not going to stop because I want to think about God. I have to do something. I have to shake it off. I have to break out. It's very much the way I explain it in like boot camps is, if you ever been on a train or a plane with a baby sitting next to you, someone's kid or a niece or a nephew or something, and the kid is screaming and crying, and it's obvious it needs something. It's hungry, it's tired, something's wrong, and you just can't take it anymore. So you pull out your keys, your car keys, and you jingle them in front of them. Jingle, jingle, jingle. And what did they do? They stop crying. They become distracted by your keys. You've moved their attention off of whatever's bothering them onto something that they think is more interesting. And that's to me what they're saying here. When you're obsessing over someone, you have to jingle some keys. You got to find some jingling keys. For me, that usually involves someone else. If I continue to think about me and myself and my situation, I am going to obsess. But if I can say, "Oh my gosh, you know what I need to do? I need to check on so and so. I'm supposed to call my mother. I'm supposed to call the neighbor. Or the neighbor's been sick. I wonder how they're feeling. I should give them a call. Maybe I don't want to call them, but I'm going to bake some bread and I'm just going to take it over and leave it on the porch. Ring the bell and run kind of thing. I got to do something to shake off that thinking, because it's all it is thinking, right? And to detach, sometimes that's how you detach. You got to get busy. Sometimes you got to clean your bathroom, scrub the toilet, wash your car, clean out your car, clean off your desk, finish a project you started. You got to do something, because it's not going to, thinking is so strong. Any kind of thinking, it is so powerful. It makes up everything around us. So to break that obsession, you're going to have to do something different. And I think that right there is an admission that you need help and there is a power greater than yourself. And that is leading you in a better direction. I like it. Moving our thought, it even says here, we can learn how to detach. We can think about God rather than about what someone else is doing or not doing. I just gave you some ideas on how to think about God with action. Moving our thoughts from one to the other, which is just what I explained, is the key to happiness. It's guaranteed. This trick, this action trick I just told you, will work with about anything. Worry, fear. If you are riddled with fear and you are in bed under the covers, with the covers, over your head, and you will get more and more fearful. You will scare yourself to death. But if you get up and you move and say, okay, what's one thing I can do today? What's one thing I can do today that would make me, God, what should I do next? And he'll tell you. The universe will tell you. Something will pop in your head. Oh, you know what? I should get all that shit out of the trunk of the car. You know what I mean? Go do that. It will break the fear. And it also shows, because of the action, that the action alone is admitting you need help, which is a smashing of the ego, which is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get our reliance on something other than ourselves because we're not responsible. We can't do it all. It's not our fault, that someone else is drinking or using, someone else is sick. It's not our fault. No matter how much they've told you, you're not that powerful. And there is a real sense of freedom. I mean, the whole title of this is detachment means freedom from obsession. Letting go of it and saying, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to see what happens here. I'm going to see how this works out. Let's see what the power greater than myself is going to do. And to show that I'm going to let that happen, I'm going to go clean the all the crap out of my trunk of my car. You see that? It's like it's a signal to the universe. I am going to give this to you. I'm going to do my laundry. I have to change the sheets on my bed. This is a sign, God. I'm going to give this to you. Okay. So I love the reading. I love the lesson behind it. And I probably needed to hear it myself again. You guys are helping me more than I'm helping you. That's for sure. Anyway, I love you all. I'll see you next Thursday. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't noticed, there are more podcasts. Upon special request, people have been asking me if I could do meditations every morning. If I could go to doing like a morning meditation show. And so I have done that. Thursdays will always be right now detachment because I really like this book. And on the other days from Friday to Wednesday, when we don't do the regular podcast, I'm doing a morning meditation out of the Courage to Change book, which is the way I started this. And I love it. And I do it all the time. So I'm going to be doing that with you, just like I do in the morning, briefly discussing it. Great way to start the day. It'll be up and available to you. The show hits the air on 6 a.m. every morning, Monday through Sunday, all week, 7 days a week. So we're going to do that. And it's up now. I've been doing it for several days. So just click on that if you want to do it. And there is a subscription to that. It's only $2.99 a month to get a month's worth of meditation, Courage to Change with Karen. It's exclusive content and it's just for you. So have a great day, and I will see you next Thursday. Love you.